Greetings, brothers and sisters. Got a lot of stuff to get to. I got a couple of stories on articles here on my one toolbar. Then I'll go to another one later and get into how celebrities are bailing on Joe Biden. And not just celebrities, but a lot of people, but they don't have an answer. It's great. The other thing is one of my viewers pointed out that my microphone, it was crackling, which I know happens. I just replaced my microphone because I saw this. I have experienced this happening. Usually it happens when I'm doing what I'm doing now, which is using my ScreenFlow app. And if that happens, I can redo the audio, but I'm not listening to the longer audios like I used to, like my Journey series stuff. I mean, it just takes too much time because if I do a 45-minute audio and then I have to listen to it, and it just gets redundant for me. I mean, I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of, I don't choose to watch my own videos in my spare time. It's, and so I go ahead and point that out. I know I have a no complaint type of, situation here, but like something like that is correctable, and I need to know if there's issues with my mic. I don't know what to do about it. I don't know if it's a computer-related issue. It doesn't happen all the time, and I don't know. Maybe there's some interference. I use a cordless mic, so. But if I could figure out why that's happening, I'll try to stop it. Like I said, I just replaced the mic, and I don't think I should replace a computer. I can replace there's a USB port that goes to a USB-C port. I could replace that or something if that thing's worn out. But anyways, let's get into the thing here. And so Biden tells two different stories about the Israeli-Hamas war in letters to Americans. The White House is sending different messages to pro-Palestinian and pro-Israeli Americans, according to letters shared with NBC News. Well, that's a real, not a surprise. President Joe Biden is delivering different messages on the war in the Middle East. It says here, one letter emphasizes Biden's support for Israel against pure evil of terrorism. The other focuses on the administration's work to protect civilians in Gaza. So they figured out they have a group of voters that are very divided on this issue. The Democrats worse than Republicans. The Republicans are just wrong. Republicans suck worse on this issue than Democrats. And, this is a big issue to suck bad on. Trump, who has been pretty good with war. Like, Trump didn't start wars, and, he didn't do this kind of stuff, the evil stuff that was done before him. He's just totally on the wrong side of this thing. And then there's this one here. Disney, Apple among advertisers to pull business on X, Twitter, after Elon Musk's anti-Semitic posts. And so tech billionaire Elon Musk faced the third day of backlash Friday from Jewish leaders, the White House, and media advertisers, including Disney and Apple, after he embraced an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory early in the week. The latest in the pattern of his echoing anti-Jewish bigotry going back years. Musk sparked the criticism with 6 words he posted Wednesday afternoon on X, the social media app he purchased a year ago. Responding to another user who accused Jews of hating white people and who had expressed indifference to anti-Semitism, Musk wrote, "You have said the actual truth." So this guy, Jonathan Greenblatt, who's one of the most unlikable people, and the president of the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, went in after him. So that happened. So I taped the next 3 items. They're about the Palestinian-Israeli thing. I've done it twice, and I forgot to hit record, and I just almost did it again without turning my mic on. So hopefully this time it'll come out. This is one Benjamin J. Shapiro, who is an absolute disaster, and this is his Instagram account. And this is his take on the conflict here.
I think we have to start saying very clearly, if you don't like it here, go. And if you don't like it here and you intend to make it worse, we will make you go. We stripped citizenship from ISIS members of ISIS who, even if they had British citizenship, we stripped their passports. We need to start doing the same thing with Hamas. We have Hamas leaders in the UK, Hamas members in the UK. I'm calling on the Foreign Secretary, the Home Secretary, the Director of Public Prosecutions, the Attorney General, Prime Minister and others to start doing this, to start taking the passports away and deporting people who support Hamas.
Well, if the West doesn't do that, then they're in a bleep load of trouble.
So is that a threat, Benjamin J. Shapiro? Sounds like a threat. You know, we all know, or we should know, at least I know, that ISIS is a controlled, an asset, intelligence community asset, right? So when you compare that group to another group, it, gets you thinking. Benjamin here, the last time I covered him, there was a Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion video. I said Megyn Kelly the first time for some reason, but they did a video called WAP, Wet Ass Boop E, right? There was just another video, ironically, by Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion that somebody sent me today, and it was god-awful. It was horrible. I mean, it was animalistic. It was just really bad. The dancing and just degraded. Probably even worse than the other one. But he commented on the video WAP, and he didn't understand it, so he asked his wife, who was a doctor, and he said that WAP, wet boopy, was a medical condition. And his wife said, "Don't worry, honey, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about causing it. You don't have to worry about causing any WAP. You're immune. You're immune from WAP, Benjamin." So then there was this. Another viewer sent me this.
Hi. During your speech, you made a lot of references to Jewish people as well as certain people in your audience, not Jewish people in general, but certain people, especially in your audience, to Nazis. Now, that is extremely offensive when certain people are German. And they're also extremely offensive to people who've actually suffered.
Are you German? Are you German?
Under Nazi rule.
I don't respect that anymore. I really don't. I don't like and I don't respect the crocodile tears to the crocodile tears. No.
Kaboom, there's some crocodile tears there. It's okay, Pumpkin. It's okay, Pumpkins. The majority of the audience is on his side, and he is against the Palestinians' treatment of Israel. I mean, the Israeli treatment of Palestinians, and he is of Jewish descent, as he talks about here.
So, folks, allow me to finish, and allow me to finish. Listen, sir, allow me to finish. Sir, I don't like to play before an audience the Holocaust card. But since now I feel compelled to. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother, please shut up. My late father was in Auschwitz. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp.
It's too much for her. Right here, it's too much for her. It's okay. It's okay, Pumpkin. Don't let your head explode. Take a deep breath.
Member of my family on my father's side,
the Jews did not take arms against the Germans.
My late father was in Auschwitz concentration camp. My late mother was in Majdanek concentration camp. Every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians. And I consider nothing more despicable than to use their suffering and their martyrdom to try to justify the torture, the brutalization, the demolition of homes that Israel daily commits against the Palestinians. So I refuse any longer to be intimidated or browbeaten by the tears. If you had any heart in you, you would be crying for the Palestinians, not for what's been done.
Kaboom. So I've seen this. A number of people have sent me these people. They are pro-Israeli people that are going out into the, into the protests. And this is a very common thing on the internet. It's been done on the news, but it's even worse on the internet, where people go out looking for stupid people to interview. And some of the things are funny. Some of it's, pretty accurate in terms of at least gauging the stupidest among us, right? It's a common thing. To wet out the responses that don't agree with you, right? And to just present the stuff that, that supports your cause. And there's a number of these pro-Israeli people. This guy's very smug. He's got a sort of a smug look on his face. Pro-Israeli people that go out and ask about October 7th. And this dude just unloads and destroys that argument here.
I ask a question. Well, let me answer the question. Right? You keep saying, what about October 7th? What about October 7th? What about October 8th? What about October 9th? What about October 10th? What about October 11th? What about October 12th? What about October 13th? What about October 14th? What about October 15th? What about October 16th? What about October 17th? What about October 18th? What about October 19th? What about October 20th? What about October 21st? What about October 22nd? Let me finish the question. I ask a question.
So that's kind of epic. So Kyrie Irving wears a Palestinian keffiyeh at NBA press conference. He has been, he was anti-bloop, and now, of course, the stuff that happened with him in the video. That he shared a link on Twitter to that video, Hebrews to Hebrews, and he got, fined $2.5 million, and the ADL came after him, all this stuff. He got suspended, remember that? So I got some epic Joe Biden stuff, which stuff that every once in a while, like I cover something, I say stuff, and then things evolve and things end up going the way that I said it would. And then there's kind of a celebration day, and calling out the people that were obviously liars all along. And I'll get into that with Joe Biden. Got more stuff on Christianity and Jesus and things like this. One more comment to cover and one more clarification. But first, let's talk about what this just happened with this thing with October 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, right, this guy. And so if you watch the mainstream news, there's two arguments that the pro-Israeli people are putting out there. And it's, CNN and MSNBC are putting these out. They have some sympathy for the Palestinian people. And, of course, the Democrats have more pro-Palestinian people than the Republicans. Republicans just absolutely suck on this issue, right? And their whole point of view, the people who are pro-Israeli on this thing, is that what happened on October 7th and the hostage situation that's currently existing are the only things that matter. They're more important and they're far worse than any suffering that the Palestinian people have suffered. The Palestinian, like I said, the Palestinians have lost maybe upwards of 20,000 people, maybe I don't know how many children, 8,000 children, whatever it is, right? 6,000 children. But it doesn't matter. It's all human life, right? Even if it's an old person, someone who's going to die of natural causes the next day, you're still doing that to them. But it isn't just the loss of life. They're kids and people being traumatized by having bombs be dropped near their houses. I mean, all the things that happen in a war-torn country. They don't have access. I mean, it's things that most people in America would complain about. Imagine if you didn't have power, water, and electricity every day since they started bombing. Whenever Israel turned off the electricity and water and internet and these things, it's been, like close to a month, probably over a month now. They've been without basic services. They don't have food. They're worried about death. I mean, it's torture for every person in Palestine. Every person in Palestine is suffering fear and trauma and PTSD. And so we have 2 million people suffering there. And Israel isn't suffering any of that, right? But somehow Israel has gotten it that they're the only people that get to claim being victim. The victimhood is unique for them, and it is somehow always worse for them than everybody else, even when they're perpetrating crimes on other people that are very similar to the things that they complain about being done to them, right? There's a time I covered the Native American Holocaust. There's a book called The Native American Holocaust that talked about how there was 120 million Native Americans here when white people got here, and 100 million to 100 and it's between 90 and 120 million people were killed. Right? You think about America now has, of course, we have these big cities. We have like 340 million people, but in America beforehand, there was Native American people in every state and every place in America. There was no place without different tribes of Native American people. So there was millions upon millions of people. So 120 million isn't, that far of a, isn't that is believable. But anyways, when that was said, right, when that was the American Holocaust thing was put out there, there was this, the ADL and other groups were all over them for using the word Holocaust. No one else could use it but Israeli people and Jewish people. That they had somehow trademarked and copyrighted Holocaust, and anybody using it, even though the Native American numbers were far worse, and many of the Native American tribes no longer exist. There are Native American tribes that have been completely wiped out. Even the Arawaks in the Bahamas, where Columbus first landed, they're completely gone. There's no ancestors of those tribes. And even though these people were, genocide and were, taken off the planet, whole cultures of people, whole, demographics of people, somehow that isn't as bad as what happened to the Jewish people in the Holocaust, right? I mean, this is how it is phrased. This is how they put this thing together. They have exclusive right to victimhood and victim consciousness, which I've talked about to such a, large degree. And, how there's no victims when there's God. When there's God, there's no victims. Because if there's an overseen plan, if there's consciousness and events aren't random and chaotic, which they would be without a God, then there's no victims. Like your soul has, everything in your life, your soul has agreed to. There's experiences that some people have and other people don't because of what your soul's plan is, right? And you can take that or whatever it is. But the other thing is the way that they're going about this. The way that they're going about, the way Israel's going about this is only generating more bad feelings, more hatred, and these other things, right? They have these on the back of football players' helmets, they have "Stop Hate," or in the end zone, they have "End Racism." They're trying to bumper sticker something. It's sort of like compensation or, an agreement to get the players to stand during the national anthem, that thing that happened with Colin Kaepernick. And during the game, they have these commercials about stop hatred towards Jews, stop anti-Semitism. And it's doomed to fail because that's not the way you get rid of hatred. And I've talked about this before, right? Because hatred is something inside you, and it's your hatred, and whatever the object of your hatred is outside of you. But somebody who has hatred in their system will find something to hate. They'll find somebody or something to hate. And the way that our civilization is managed is divide and conquer. It's to, the Democrats and the Republicans, the way that they frame the narratives, they want you to hate each other. They want you to hate different groups. They're making it so racial groups will hate each other. Like everything that's being done is so that people will hate these different groups. That people will pick sides, and, there's always this binary system, and you have to pick one team or the other, even if you're not involved. Like most people have a team. Some people say, I just want peace, but the majority of people have picked either the Palestinians or the Jewish people, Israel, to root for. Like people root for one side or another. That's how our consciousness works. We are very competitive, contest-based, sports-based people, not just in America, but globally. And people pick sides. Everyone's on one team or another. They pick teams. They say stop hate, but the people that run the system want you to hate somebody and blame somebody other than the people who control the system, or, look at it as being something coming from God. But there's different kinds of hate, right? There's American hate. There's entitled hate, where you just hate somebody in your family, or you just hate somebody at work, but they haven't done anything to you to generate like a hateful response. Like it's hate because something's annoying, right? Or it's some rich Kardashian, Instagool hoe who's like Oh, I hate that color on you. Something like that, right? Oh, I hate my shoes. This kind of thing. Or they hate some. They use the word hate like that, and so that's a very superficial use of the word hate, and it's hate without provocation. Like, someone being annoying to you, or somebody yelling at you one time, or somebody sharing beliefs that don't agree with your beliefs and you hate them. People who come on my channel and spew hatred at me because I said something that they don't agree with. That's just wimpy hate. That's snowflake hate, right? It's not real. Like, then there's hate where somebody's been abused, somebody's been arred, somebody's been, whatever it is, a country's been invaded, that somebody's killed your family, right? That's real hate. Like, I don't believe hate is ever justifiable, but it's justifiable in the sense of, it hurts you, so it's not good for you. But it's something where it makes sense that these people hate other people, they hate this other group of people, right? I just watched a trailer yesterday. It's an Australian film, and it's a husband and a brother of a woman who's been arred by some guy, and he got 10 years in prison, and then he gets released on good behavior. And so they take the guy out in the woods, and they start torturing him, right? And that's understandable, right? Some guy arred and killed a woman, and her brother and her husband don't, they want to take they're not satisfied with the justice system, right? And the kind of hate that those people feel towards this person, you understand it at a different level than some superficial internet hate that some, snowflake is saying because somebody said something they didn't like. And the Palestinian people have suffered greatly at the hands of these Israeli people, right? Like, you could say the Israelis have rights to hate the Jewish people in these other places where they are persecuted, whatever. I mean, you have to see it from one side or the other. That's how things work. It's subjective. But when one group is being bullied by another group, and it's clear that in this situation, despite the media coverage and despite what they're saying, that there's a clear victim here, and it's the Palestinian people. Not just since October, but since 1947 or 9 or whatever, when the country was partitioned, and the Palestinians have suffered ever since, right? And they're suffered much worse than the Israeli people and Israel as a country. And so the Palestinian people, you can't say their hate isn't justified in some way or another. Again, hate is a bad thing in all cases, but you understand it, right? And if they put up some resistance, whatever that might be, you can't call that resistance somehow worse and call them terrorists because they go against the establishment. And that's how they frame these arguments with America and all these other countries. It's wrong on every level. And if you don't see that, and you're not willing to acknowledge that, then you're perpetrating a fraud and you're creating more hate. You're creating more bad feelings because you're not acknowledging the difficulty of the situation for, who's worse, who's getting the worst treatment, who's suffering worse, who the bully is, and who's the aggressor and who's the victim. And again, I don't believe in victimhood, but everyone else does. So that's, I don't use it in the language that they do, but who's the, people that are they're getting the worst end of the deal. And it's obvious who that is, right? There's no question about it. Okay, so let's move on to the Joe Biden stuff here. So they've put out the Economist cover a little bit earlier this year. Usually it's some apocalyptic stuff here. How the young should invest, will fentanyl spread to Europe, better ways to find science, the best films of 2023, and the world ahead of 2024. Our 90-page guide to the coming year. And, they get Donald Trump here. It's not the most flattering picture of him, and he's encompassing the world here. And the only reason they can do this, Trump is pretty much unelectable, but he's running against Joe Biden and possibly Kamala Harris, and God knows who else they have out there. And the Democrats have realized it, and I think they kind of know they're screwed. And so I got a bunch of clips to show you about this. Here, let's start here. So Joe Biden is going to call Xi Jinping a dictator. And he clearly wasn't supposed to do that because one of his handlers, Anthony Blinken, the neocon.
And Mr. President, after today, would you still refer to President Xi as a dictator? This is a term that you used earlier this year.
Well, look, he is. I mean, he's a dictator in the sense that he's a guy who runs a country that...
Kaboom! And this is going around everywhere. I've seen it. Few people have sent it to me. I mean, look at him. Oh, man. And so it's bad. It's that bad. Like they know it's that bad, and they knew that it was going to be this bad when he was running, which I'll get into. We're going to go back in time. I'm going to show you my one of my compilations, and then all the rest of these recent things that have been said. So here's The Rock with Joe Rogan, and The Rock, who very fervently supported Joe Biden. We'll go back to that. First, we'll watch this, and we'll see that. Is now not supporting them.
I have friends who support Trump. I have friends who support Biden. I have friends.
Do you really have friends who support Biden?
I do.
Come on.
No. Here's what I do. I have friends. Thank you. That's a good check because that's important. This is important context.
They support the Democratic Party.
I have friends who are loyal to the party.
Yes.
Kaboom, right? But this is what The Rock said, 4 years ago. So this is from Joe Biden's official channel.
Hey, EJ.
Hey.
Hi, EJ. It's EJ.
Hey.
Hey, guys. I got to tell you, well,
DJ. I think, do you say EJ or DJ? Do you say DJ or EJ?
EJ.
Hey.
Hi.
Hi. Hello. Hey.
Hey, guys. I got to tell you, well, it is so good seeing you guys. Senator Harris, it's a pleasure to finally see you and finally meet you.
Thank you. It is a pleasure to see you. I'm a huge fan of everything from Fast and Furious, all of them, to Jumanji. So thank you for your work.
Thank you for your work. I'm going to give you a medal. You deserve a medal for Jumanji.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for your work. Let me start.
When you were on your knees, Kamala Nepaz Harris.
By saying, guys, I've been a lucky guy over the years in my life and my career to have been part of and participated in some real.
He played for the Dragons at one point.
Defining moments, and I have never publicly endorsed a presidential candidate or a vice presidential candidate in my life over my career.
Don't break the streak, bro. You're gonna regret it.
So I figured let's kick this conversation.
It's not gonna age well.
Off this way by me officially publicly endorsing you both to become president and vice president of our great country.
Thank you. Whoa.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Thank
you. That
means a great deal to us, for real. Thank you.
For real, it does. I mean, I'm not stop here like a meat puppet with some guy's hand up my whoop. I'm up here. That means a lot. Arnold. I mean, whatever your name is.
Thank you.
You guys are both obviously experienced to lead. You've done great things. Joe, you've had such an incredible career. You've led.
Lying and plagiarizing and sniffing and snoozling, and now you're senile. Yeah, what could go wrong?
My opinion, with great compassion and heart and drive, but also soul.
Oh, come on, bro. Come on, bro.
And you and I talked about that in the past and how important soul is. And
soul is real important. Like, you have one. Like, you have one, I have one. It means like everyone has one, and you got one.
Kamala, I'm going to embarrass you just for a little bit because I'm going to talk a little bit about your.
I got some photos here. I'm going to embarrass you with some photos of how you worked your way up to the top, Nepaz.
Amazing experience, and you have been an attorney, a district attorney, a state attorney.
Yeah, it's right. I was those things. I was. Look at me shake my head. Yes, you're right. For The Rock.
A U.S. senator, smart, tough. I've seen you in those hearings. And,
sentences guys to 20 years in prison for smoking pot. I remember that.
In my opinion, you are a certified badass.
I'm honored and thank you.
A certified badass. And who's more can certify a badass than The Rock?
That's a huge compliment from you.
You're welcome. Joe, you and I have talked about the relationship that you had with your father. This idea.
And your daughter, when you used to shower with her when she was a teenager. I mean, you got so many things, Joe, that are interesting and kind of weird, and should disqualify you from public office. But I'm going to endorse you anyway.
respect and earning respect that our parents have taught us. My dad always said, respect is given when it's earned. Question I had is,
why is he so defensive? What's up with him?
how will the both of you earn the respect?
By doing what we say we're going to do, by keeping our word.
Okay, like something you've never done in your life. By fathering a crackhead son and selling, then we can sell access to me, and I can prostitute the office of the senator and vice president and then president, so my family can get financial benefits, so I can keep my son into crack. That's how I'm going to win over the American people.
By leveling with the American people, by taking responsibility. When we fail, acknowledge it. We're not going to be perfect, but
yeah, you're not.
Take responsibility. Say, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I believe, and tell the truth. That sounds so basic, but the American people are strong. They're tough. They can take it.
Okay, so let me show you one more thing here before we move to the next celebrity disendorsement. It's a big one for someone who was so much hates Trump. Someone who's a certifiable Trump hater. And you're going to say, oh, wow, that guy's now questioning Biden and might vote for Trump. Like, it's a big one. But let's go back to another gaffe from his debates, the one I don't show you as much. I show you the one with Kamala, where Kamala's laughing at him. Well, I can show you that one. Let's show you that one first. And these are two gaffes from the debates when Kamala was laughing at him.
I wanted to return back to this issue of black voters. I have a lifetime of experience with black voters. I've been one since I was 18.
He's very light-skinned. You wouldn't call his complexion black, certainly. But Cory Booker and Kamala Harris couldn't believe that they were losing in the black vote to Joe Biden. Like, think about that. Like, they were, two people of color, and Joe Biden was beating them among African Americans. And this came up in the debate because they're dumbfounded by this, because they're watching this guy just poop his pants and drool all over himself and wander around stage. I mean, he was doing this stuff already.
Nobody on this stage should need a focus group to hear from African American voters. Black voters are pissed off, and they're worried. They're pissed off because the only time our issues seem to be really paid attention to by politicians is when people are looking for their vote. And they're worried because the Democratic Party, we don't want to see people miss this opportunity and lose because we are nominating someone that isn't trusted, doesn't have authentic connection. And so that's what's on the ballot, and issues do matter.
So Joe Biden was beating everybody, and none of them could understand it. Like, they're all flabbergasted.
I have a lot of respect for the vice president. He has sworn me into my office as a hero. This week I hear him.
Yeah, then he groped my sister, and
literally say that I don't think we should legalize marijuana. I thought you might have been high when you said it. and let me tell you.
No, at least your son is, right?
Because marijuana in our country is already legal for privileged people, and the war on drugs has been a war on black.
Look, I got something. Hello, teacher, I got an answer.
Brown people, and so let me just say this: with more African Americans under criminal supervision in America than all the slaves since 18.
This is what he did. He touches his face a lot, and then I started noticing it when he was wearing a mask.
50 do not roll up into communities and not talk directly to issues that are going to relate to the liberation of children, because there are people in Congress right now that admit to smoking marijuana, while there are our kids are in jail right now for those drug crimes. And so these are the kind of issues that mean a lot to our community, and if we don't have somebody authentically, we lost the last election. Let me just give you this data example.
Okay, he's getting rolled. Look at Joe Biden. It's painful.
We lost in Wisconsin because of a massive diminution. A lot of reasons, but there was a massive diminution in the African American vote. We need to have someone that can inspire, as Kamala said, to inspire African Americans to the polls at record numbers.
Thank you, Senator Booker. Vice President Biden, you can respond to that.
I'll be very brief. Number one, I think we should decriminalize marijuana, period. And
Period.
Anyone who has a record should be let out of jail, their records expunged, it be completely zeroed out. But I do think it makes sense, based on data, that we should study what the long-term effects are for the use of marijuana. That's all it is, number one.
Because there's been no studies. We have no idea what it does, right? I mean, does it turn you into an alien? We don't even know. I mean, does it, what is it? It's got all kinds of side effects we're not even aware of.
Everybody gets out. Record expunged. Secondly, I'm part of that Obama coalition. I come out of the black community in terms of my support. If you notice, I have more people supporting me in the black community that have announced for me because they know me. They know who I am. 3 former chairs of the Black Caucus. The only African-American woman that ever been elected to the United States Senate. A whole range of people.
No,
my point is...
that's not true. The other one is here.
I said the first. I said the first African-American elected. The first African-American.
They're laughing at him. They're laughing at him, and then he lies and said, I didn't say what I just said. This is a guy who told The Rock he's going to take responsibility, right? And so everybody knew. She was laughing at him. Cory Booker and her couldn't believe it. The other candidates knew. The reporters knew. Everybody knew. I'm going to come back to this because it's important. Because now they're all bailing on him. But we always knew he was this guy. This was the guy that he was.
Vice President Biden, the Me Too movement has forced a cultural reckoning around the issue of sexual violence and harassment against women in America. Are there specific actions that you would take early in your administration to address this problem?
And so we have to just change the culture, period, and keep punching at it and punching at it and punching at it. It will be a big, no, I really mean it. It's a gigantic issue, and we have.
Look at Kamala's trying not to laugh. She's trying not to laugh here. She wants to laugh because he was talking about domestic abuse. And he said, you got to keep on punching at and punching at. And he raised his fist. And he talked with an authoritative voice. So that's JoJo Magoo. So somebody posted this on Twitter. I don't know who sent it to me, one of you guys. And it's something that they're calling him out for, but he does it all the time, where all of a sudden he starts yelling. He talks in a way you can't hear him. He talks very meekly, very it's like going to sleep. And then he just yells. Like he has these 2 volume settings.
Well, I watched it before. I watched it as a kid. I watched it as a senator. I watched what happened in my community. It changed everything.
So this is him, right? And he's always done this. Since he's been running for president since 2019, he's done this. I don't know. He did this earlier in his career, but now it's even worse. He sounds like some old man saying, get off my lawn. And so in the time I've been editing this video, 2 gaffs have come in. They're kind of significant. One's creepy, and the other is just clueless. My wife sent me one, and a viewer sent me the other. Let me show you these 2 new gaffs. Breaking news. Since starting this video, JoJo Magoo has done a couple more gaffs. Okay, so here's Joe Biden at some kind of school event. I don't know if this is, he pardoned the turkeys today. I don't know what's up. My wife just sent me this. I'm editing this video, and I realized I got to include this. So he notices a girl's ears. Yes, a girl's ears in the crowd.
Thank you. And I love your ears. I love them. They're really cool. What's your name?
You love her ears? They're really cool. So nobody ever, right? Like what's up there, Joe?
Catherine.
Oh, she's wearing some kind of like ears here, like cat ears or mouse ears, which is equally as creepy, right?
A beautiful name. That's my mommy's name.
That's his mommy's name. His mommy's name is Catherine.
Well, nice to see. How old are you? 17? 6. Thank you.
6. She's 6. Look at him. He asked her if she's 17 because he wonders if she's barely legal. I mean, just everything about that thing was creepy. And they ran this guy, and he was like this before. They ran him, they installed him as president, and now they're stuck with this. I mean, it's worse now, but it was always bad. And now, they can't hide it anymore. And so it's just so, he's just such a creep.
You could say even this harder than getting a ticket to the Renaissance tour or Britney's tour. She's down in It's kind of warm in Brazil right now. Just to get here, Liberty and Bell had to beat some tough odds in competition. They had to work hard to show patience and be willing to travel over 1,000 miles.
So Taylor Swift's tour is called the Eras Tour, and Britney's tour is called the, I don't know, Britney doesn't have a tour, right? You know, him saying it's hot in Brazil and then saying these turkeys had a hard time getting pardoned and they had to be patient. And, you know, turkeys aren't smart. Like, turkeys will bunch up in the corner if there's a thunderstorm, and some of them will suffocate because they're not that smart, especially these, factory-raised turkeys that they're pardoning. They're barely an animal. I mean, so that's 2 gaffes. Those are 2 gaffes that came in whilst I was editing this video. But then Michael Rappaport bails on him. One of you guys sent me this today.
If it comes down to pig dick Donald Trump and smoking Joe Biden, I'm sorry. I am sorry. Voting for pig dick Donald Trump is on the table. I'm sorry. I'm fucking I'll still call him slob dick Donald Trump, pig dick Donald Trump, and all that. But we need to get this whole situation under control.
Okay, so he's even thinking about bailing on Biden. He's basically admitting that things were better under Trump, and I don't think they were. It was, we've always been in a state of economic collapse, and we've been in a desperate state now for a number of years. Where they're just fudging the books and playing, musical chairs with the economy to keep it going. And so, but it was better under Trump before COVID. It was better under him before COVID. And this guy who really hates Trump, like, he's even bailing on Trump, right? But the thing is, all of them knew, right? Remember this exchange here? So I got a couple things to show you. Everybody knew. It wasn't like he just became senile. We knew in 2019. I covered it. I'll show you the compilation. Let me show you the compilation here. Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is a compilation of some of the gaffes, things that JoJo has said. Just a few of them. I don't think I have all of them. But just some of the gaffes that I've covered. And I know there's things I don't know about, and there's future gaffes. But as of December 2019, these are JoJo's gaffes, right? And, yeah, enjoy them.
We got to recognize that kid wearing a hoodie may very well be the next poet laureate and not a gangbanger. Ladies and gentlemen, there are too many black men, and I might add women, in prison. Stay in fact, anyway, my time's up. I'm sorry.
I was ready to prostitute myself. And
if you're poor, you cannot do it. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids. We choose truth over facts. A big portion of it called Crimea. Right. He's saying that it was President, my boss, it was his fault.
This is President, my boss, is his fault.
Do not put it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not.
Look, why should voters give you another chance?
Because the God's done before. Oh, yeah. It's your professionalism that I respect. Because the God's done before. I'm the only one up here who's ever beat the NRA. They have every problem coming to them. We have to make sure that every single child does, in fact, have 3, 4, and 5-year-olds go to school, not daycare, school. We bring social workers into homes of parents to help them deal with how to raise their children. Play the radio, make sure the television, make sure you have the record player on at night, the phone, make sure the kids hear words. A kid coming from a very poor school, or a very poor background, hear 4 million words fewer spoken by the time they get there. There's so much no, I'm going to go like the rest of them do, twice over, okay?
Look at this creepy guy touching her hair, snoozling her.
Okay, right.
Just how creepy is this? Goes on forever. This
guys, look up the Senate photographer up
This
top.
creepy MF. Get the porn cam. Get the grope cam up there.
Can I have one with Jess alone?
So what he said there is, can I have one with Jess alone? And he later goes on to say the father has to come in and chaperone because he's being creepy. He did this a number of times. I'll show you another one, but we all know this. I covered this extensively. This is when he was swearing in these senators in 2015 and 16. It's up on C-SPAN. And then he says to her, if he was younger, meaning her age, he would change parties for her, which means he's flirting with her and saying that he would ditch his wife. If he was younger, he would go back and marry this girl instead of his wife. I mean, the whole thing, just creepy and just, totally JoJo Magoo.
I don't want the damn thing. Do not put it on me, sir. Please, sir. Do not do that.
All right, so I put a different audio in with a bunch of clips of him groping and stuff, which you already know. There's some other things I'm leaving out here. And then there was a number of things that happened after this, and some of them I missed before. And he's a walking gaff. Of course, there's the pool one where he talked about corn pop, all these things, right? So there's, there was hundreds of these clips already in the No Malarkey tour. And then, there's a number of clips that happened before he was elected, and then all the clips that have happened since then. So there's all this evidence out there that this guy was, incapable of doing the job. He was creepy. He was a liar, and his mental capacity was breaking down. But everybody knew it, right? Everyone knew there were so many things that he did during the campaign that showed that he was senile. And everyone chose to ignore it or pretend or lie about it in the media, celebrities, all these people. And how could you do that and not know it was going to go south? I mean, the guy couldn't, the guy was this bad. So this was this one bad exchange.
And that's your son over there. He get a job and work for a gas company, but he had no experience with gas, did nothing. In order to get access to the public, for the president. So you're selling access to the president just like he is. So
You're a damn liar, man. That's not
Calls him a damn liar.
true. And no one...
someone just sent me a video about...
You're a liar. You are letting this go on, and the numbers prove it.
Marjorie Taylor Greene.
So YouTube just recommended this to me, right? Where Marjorie Taylor Greene gets silenced by her own, somebody in her own party.
At a hearing by a member of her own party, Greene blamed the Department of Homeland Security Secretary for U.S. fentanyl deaths.
How many more people do we have to watch die every single day in America? How long are you going to let this go on?
Congresswoman, let me assure you that we're not letting it go on. We are fighting this.
No, I reclaim my time. You're a liar.
We can disagree. You don't have to call a witness a liar.
The rules state you can't impugn someone's character. Identifying or calling someone a liar is unacceptable in this committee. And I make the ruling that we strike those words. When we strike, it does terminate the time of the individual who is speaking. So the gentlelady is no longer recognized.
Greene left the hearing shortly after that moment.
She taking her picture.
You're a liar.
All right, so she got rang up. Everyone talks about media talks about it, and she sucks. She's just a nightmare. She's not a truther. She's a problem. She's a problem for all of us. But they all talk about her, how she's this terrible.
You're a damn liar, man. That's not true. And no one has ever said that? No one has proved that?
I see it on the TV.
You see it on the TV. No, I know you do. And by the way, that's why I'm not sedentary. I get up and no.
Try to take the microphone from him. This is one of JoJo Magoo's handlers. He's got a Biden pin trying to take the microphone. The guy won't give it.
Let him go. Let him go. Look, the reason I'm running is because I've been around a long time and I know more than most people know. And I can get things done. That's why I'm running.
That's why he's running. No Malarkey. This was his No Malarkey tour, right? That's how bad it was.
I want to check my shape on. Let's do push-ups together here, man. Let's run. Let's do whatever you want to do.
Woo! So then he challenges the guy to a push-up contest, and it wasn't the first time this happened. So he's unhinged, right? He's lost his mind. He calls him a liar, and then he's going to call him fat, like fat's his name.
Number two, no one one has said my son has done anything wrong, and I did not on any occasion.
Well, now he's been charged with crimes, and it's pretty well known his laptop was a cover up, right? So we all know these are lies, and it's much worse now because he can't say this time around, and his son's going to be an issue in the campaign when it comes around to election time, right?
No one has ever said it. Not
I
one.
didn't say you were doing anything wrong.
You said I set up my son to work in an oil company. Isn't that what you said? Get your words straight, Jack.
That's what I hear on that line.
Get your words straight, Jack.
MSNBC.
You don't hear that in MSNBC. You did not hear that at all. What you heard, look, okay, I'm not going to get in an argument with you, man.
Well, I don't want to.
Well, yeah, you do, but look, fat, look, here's the deal.
Look, fat, look. Look, fat, look. You fat shame the guy. I mean, all this stuff is the kind of behavior Democrats and liberals and Me Too people and cupcakes and snowflakes don't like. He's name calling, charging the guy, calling the guy a liar. He's challenging the guy to push-up contests, calls him fat.
Here's the deal.
It looks like you don't have any more backbone with Trump.
Okay, so then you're the problem, right? And so this was, in 2019. And then he got in an interview with NPR, and I hadn't seen the whole interview, at least I don't remember seeing it. But she's asking him a lot of tough questions that are based in her being a liberal and him not being liberal enough. And he's getting pissed. Like the whole video, it's 25 minutes long. The first 11 minutes, he's pissed, right? And then she asks him about this exchange, and this is what he does here.
Other day at your town hall, because you got a lot of attention for it. A man stood up and started throwing false allegations your way.
They weren't false. They weren't false, honey.
About your son Hunter Biden and his work in Ukraine and your work as vice president.
They're not false.
Then in Ukraine, and you responded by calling him a damn liar. And then you challenged him to push-ups, and then you asked him for an IQ test?
No, he came along, and he said he's entitled to do this. He said, you're too old. He said, you're too old. I can't vote for somebody as old as you. I said, okay. And he was challenging what kind of shape. So I kidded.
Joe Biden just turned 81. He's the oldest, he's the oldest president that's ever been, right? And he was bad then, but this is when it goes really off the rails.
Did you want to do a push-up contest? I was joking. Look, I'm in pretty good
Which is
shape.
what Donald Trump says a lot. Hey, you can't take a joke. I was joking.
No.
But the point
Now he puts his finger in her face. Look at him. Like he's, this is senile behavior, right? He's losing it. He's kind of like he's not supposed to be doing this. Like his campaign handlers, right after this, COVID made it so he didn't have to do these things. Like he stopped doing town halls. They got rid of the no malarkey stuff because it was ridiculous. He was going on a no malarkey tour. How many people even know what the word malarkey even means? My grandparents and my parents, that's from, the 1920s, no malarkey. And, when he went to South Carolina and Clyburn made sure he won that state after he came in 4th and 5th in Iowa and in New Hampshire, they got rid of that no malarkey stuff, and then they just hid him away. They realized that the guy couldn't do it, that they couldn't run him as a candidate. He challenged another guy to go outside and fight in a factory. I'm not going to show you that, but you've probably seen it. And he was losing it, right? His temper was getting to him. And anger is this kind of anger is very common for someone who has dementia. He can't control himself. He can't be doing this. He's sticking his finger in her face during a time when Me Too was a big thing.
Compare me to Donald Trump.
But people
Don't
did.
do
At
that.
the town hall I was
No,
just
they
at.
didn't.
Yes, they did.
Well,
they said to me, the woman you met at the end, 94-year-old Mary, said to me, I was so disappointed in him. This is a direct quote. That is not the Joe I know. He sounded like Donald Trump in that clip.
Well, look, what Donald Trump says, he makes fun of people. He belittles people.
That's what you were doing, right? And so he's, the guy's gone. And they all knew it, right? This isn't something new. The guy didn't go senile overnight. He didn't have dementia overnight. And there were so many things I covered in 2019. He clearly wasn't up for the job. But they didn't have anything better. And who knows why they ran him. Maybe because he was so, he's such a complete puppet. He's incapable of making his own decisions. he's under complete control by whoever's running him, the neocons. He made a deal with the neocons, and maybe they want to push its agenda. The neocons were neoconservatives. They were Republicans. Under George W. Bush, they had been disgraced by their handling of the Iraq War, the Afghanistan war, and the stuff in Libya and all that stuff, right? They had been proven wrong. They were embarrassed. But maybe they made a deal with them because everyone wanted to get rid of Trump. Neocons hated Trump, whatever it was, right? Trump sucks. I'm not, Trump's a nightmare. But, this was, you can't say who's worse. But Biden was certainly incompetent mentally. And the other candidates they ran, I think, were all unelectable and unlikable. And Bernie Sanders was the only one with enthusiasm, and they openly rigged it against Bernie Sanders. And so now the Democrats are in a similar situation, but even worse. Because if they get rid of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris thinks it's her turn. And the reason Biden nominated Kamala Harris, I think, was for a couple reasons. The first one was he first said he was going to nominate a woman for vice president. And so he had a limited number of women who he could nominate that were, quality running mates. But then he said he was going to nominate a woman of color. And it was Kamala, who was, her dad is Jamaican and part Jamaican and part Irish. And the Irish part owns slaves or something like that, right? And Kamala's mother was Indian, East Indian. And so she wasn't really African American. And she wasn't popular. She only had 1%, less than 1% when she was running. Nobody liked her. And so that was probably another reason he nominated Kamala, because he wanted to, if he had someone like her, they wouldn't get rid of him, because the Democrats did not want Kamala to be president, and she's unelectable. And so Gavin Newsom is a disaster in California. Maybe he's a better candidate. At least he isn't senile, but he's certainly a disaster. And then who else? Buttigieg. They don't have anybody else. They don't have a superstar. And it looks like the one person Donald Trump can beat is Joe Biden, and the other one, if there is two, is Kamala. He probably has a better chance against Kamala. But Donald Trump might beat either one of them just based in mental competence and how it's turning against Joe Biden. This Israel thing isn't helping Joe Biden amongst the youth and other people, amongst Arab voters. He's losing voters. It's not going to be as easy for them to cheat or do whatever. And so Joe Biden is a disaster. But the Democrats don't have a plan B, and even the celebrities are bailing on him. And it's gotten that bad. The Rock, who gave this glowing endorsement, is now saying he doesn't have one friend, nobody that he knows, that they're all Democrats mostly, right? He has a few Republican friends, but the majority of them are people that back Joe Biden. And so, and he's bailed on him. And Michael Rappaport hates Trump. And so even the MSNBC is bailing on him over this Palestinian thing and over his age and things. And so, he's losing amongst the people that were rigging it for him, the people who were, the media that was blatantly lying about all this. And they all knew it. They have no excuse because they nominated a guy who was going senile and they didn't care. Because they figured the people that were running Joe Biden would be better than Trump. They thought somebody, political establishment was better than Trump. And it turned out not to be true. Not that Trump was good or great. Trump's a punk. He sucks. But Trump was doing better than the political establishment. At least most people were happier under Trump before COVID than they are under Biden right now. And so this is where they're all at. I want to get to this one more thing to do with this Christian stuff here. I want to get into the Jesus God stuff real quick here, with my other videos. Just a brief 10, 15-minute voiceover, I think. First, somebody sent me this clip of Isaac Asimov.
If God is dead, everything is permitted.
Well, on the contrary, that assumes that human beings have no feeling about what is right and wrong. Is the only reason you are virtuous because that's your ticket to heaven? Is the only reason you don't beat your children to death because you don't want to go to hell? It seems to me that it's insulting to human beings to imply that only a system of rewards and punishments can keep you a decent human being. Isn't it conceivable a person wants to be a decent human being because that way he feels better, because that way the world is better? I think that when I die, there will be nothingness. That does not mean that I have the impulse to go out and rob and steal and rape and everything else because I don't fear punishment. I fear the punishment of my own conscience. I have a conscience. It doesn't depend on religion. In societies in which religion is very powerful, there's no shortage of crime and sin and misery, despite heaven and hell. Go down death row. A bunch of murderers maybe who are waiting for execution and ask them if they believe in God. They'll tell you yes.
So I agree with the part about him saying that there's rewards and punishment, right? That's how religions work. And that this idea that people will only be good if there is, some sort of religious authority saying you're going to be punished if you're not good and you get rewarded if you are. And so that's true. And there is people with a conscience that are atheists that care about other people and have empathy, but there's no reason to have those things if it's chaos. And that's the problem with atheism. Because atheism means there's no plan or there's no order. And so why be a nice person, right? Why be a kind person? It's just a free-for-all. If there's no order and there's no right or wrong in that sense, right, then it becomes just an animalistic, type of survival of the fittest situation. It is the idea that you have a soul and that you have a higher purpose here and you have divinity within you and you serve something, which is the true motivation to be a better person, and connecting with that energy inside of you, where your compassion is in your heart and your empathy and things like this. So, I partially agree with them, but part of that isn't true. And there are people out there. I had a client of mine who he idolized Eminem when Eminem was big, and he abused his father's girlfriends, his father's fiancée, his stepmom's daughter, just to break up the marriage. Like, he was that kind of person, right? And we had a conversation. He was very adamant that the only reason that people, people don't murder people all the time and do bad things is because of laws, right? He couldn't imagine that people would do it just because they, had some sort of empathy and compassion. So there are people out there that are like that need some sort of external authority and threats of punishment to keep them from doing bad things. And maybe even in terms of the idea of the divinity, because, a lot of these religions, Jesus was teaching to very violent, not good people in the Middle East at the time. And so there's a lot of violence, a lot of, debauchery, a lot of crazy behaviors, a lot of, immoral behaviors. Most of the comments I got were supportive of my position, and at least, people who value my opinion, whether they agree with it all the time or not, right? But there was like one comment where a person just said, in the middle of the thing, let me see if I can find it here. The person said, Jesus is Lord. And I don't know why I had to find that. I had that one memorized. I didn't have to look it up. These bumper sticker answers that people give, right? And that's a big problem with all of these things, because it is something that takes some convincing and thought, right? And the one thing that I was seeing in all the comments, and I talked about a little bit the last time I commented on this, there are a lot of people who have positive association with Christianity, and I'm one of them. Like, I had a good positive experience as a Catholic. I don't regret, I didn't have anything bad happen to me as a Catholic. And my mom and my grandmother praying the rosary helped me, I'm sure. Like, I can't quantify that or prove it, but I feel like it did. And growing up with a religious mom is one of the teachings in the Sajmark tradition. Growing up with a spiritual mom is really important to become a spiritual person. And I had that. My mom suffered from incompetence and a lot of different, difficult qualities. But she was definitely a spiritual person. And she, started the Sajmark system, did the meditation for a while, got the transmission, and met Master Charji. And, she was certainly spiritual, which both my brother and I benefited from. I'm sure my sisters did in their way. And I attribute all those things to helping me find, or helping the Sajmark system find me. The Sajmark system helped me in so many ways, transformed me, helped to transform me. The work I did was included in that, right? I participated, and I've had all this transformation, and, still there's a lot of things I could do better. And, it's not like I've made it, But in terms of where I was before and where I am now, I was a low-functioning person who, was able to achieve things and do things and suffer through things that before I did it, or if I didn't have Sajmark, I never would have been able to do those things, right? I would have been completely overwhelmed. And so that's one of the things that Sajmark has done for me that's proven. There are a lot of things that the system has proven to me to be true. But there are other things, other claims that I believe in just because I trust the system, but they're not proven, right? I don't have a personal experience of them. And there are people who are Christian who were commenting saying they've had a few things happen to them. One lady said she had miracles, that proved to her that Christianity was everything that it said it was. But that doesn't mean Jesus is the only Son of God, right? Just because you've had some spiritual experiences means that the system successfully helped you connect to God, which isn't the goal of the system anyway. The goal of the religion is control and power over the parishioners, over the flock, right? But people have had spiritual experiences because it's available if you're a true seeker. But that doesn't mean everything that you're told about the system is true or everything in the Bible is true. You have to make that distinction. Like, you have to make the distinction between what you've actually experienced and then the other things that are said about the system. And some of them may be true, some of them may not. It doesn't mean that if one thing's true, all of them are true, right? And I'm aware of that with my own journey. I believe and trust the teachings in the Sajmark system, but there's a difference between the ones I've experienced and the ones that I just believe in because it's part of the system that's worked so well for me. But there's a distinction there, right? And I wanted to just say one more thing about this idea of people calling me master. I said it was kind of an asshole, that's too much of an asshole to be called that, but that's not really, I should have expanded on that. And what that means is, in the Sajmark tradition, the masters of the system take responsibility for your spiritual evolution. You're responsible for it, but they are committed to their side of it. And they stress and worry and think about you, and every minute you're with them, they're, or not even with them, you're a part of their system, that you've committed to the system. They feel responsible to help you connect to God. And when you fail and do the wrong thing, this is how the masters of the system have been in the past, not so much dodgy, but they stressed out and they blamed themselves. It was famous for these things. And, when you came into their presence, they were, when you were with them physically or you wrote to them, they would, transmit to you and set up your spiritual journey. And they're connected to you, feeding you energy, the transmission and cleaning and, doing everything that was needed to be done from their side to help you evolve spiritually. Their commitment and, I can't even describe it, right? But it's everything I'm saying and more. There are times I talked about that story when Babaji, my preceptor said he would go to India and Babaji would be in his courtyard and he had a little courtyard and he had a seat, a chair that kind of leaned back, and he had a hookah, a water pipe that he smoked tobacco and jaggery, which is unrefined sugar, and charcoal. And he would smoke it, and he would hold court, and he would have a new person sit next to him. And he'd smoke the hookah and talk to people, then he'd look at the person, then he'd smoke the hookah and look at the person again, and stare at their, etheric body, their their spiritual essence. And he would contemplate, and he would smoke again, he'd contemplate, and, maybe he'd be talking to Lalaji, his spiritual master, whatever it was, right? And then he would look at the person with very loving eyes and say, "Now I'm on your case." And the person felt like, that what that meant on a universal, on an infinite idea of their spiritual journey. And now there was this soul that was going to be with them and helping them and guide them. And, this idea of being a Sherpa is, you walked up the mountain and the Sherpa had to walk with you, and all these things. There's all these stories, and I've had all these experiences myself, and we all felt this idea of the commitment of the master of the system. And I don't have that commitment to you all or people that would come to me. Even as a preceptor, I did in the beginning, but I've kind of lost my enthusiasm for that because of people, right? Now, my commitment is I make videos and I talk about this stuff regularly and I share my life story, so there's commitment there. I'm not doing nothing. I'm doing my best to help people hear about a system that's helped me, but that's ultimately your choice whether you do it, and if you do it, whether you stick with it, that's all on you, right? And my commitment is I put the information out there, and if somebody asks me a question and I have some way of, helping them out a little bit, I'll do a little bit, But it's nowhere near the commitment of the masters of the system. And I don't know if I would ever have that commitment, the way I feel now. I'm kind of, I had a lot of enthusiasm in the beginning, and that's been kind of beaten out of me. And, some of that's been good, the cleaning, and, some of it's just reality, and some of it's just my opinion of the human race. But, I work at it. I participate. I have some commitment, but it isn't that level commitment. Is it a master level commitment? There's just so much I'm willing to do for other people. And right now it's pretty minimal in terms of, interpersonal contact. And, I'm not going to spoon feed people. I'm not going to carry them. I'm not going to put myself in a position to be resentful and all these things and feel, stabbed in the back and the rest of it, right? I open up, my life, my stories, my energy, the energy that comes through these videos. I made the Gratefullness videos and things like this, but it's nowhere near what the masters were willing to do for you. And, that's why that calling me a master is incorrect, right? Because, that and the fact that I haven't mastered myself and I'm not on that level, right? Like I'm kind of a chucklehead. I work at it and I've put a lot of effort into it, and, there's been some spiritual evolution, but like I haven't reached that level. And I would say if I did, right? I'm not, being falsely humble here. It's not, it's just not nearly what you would get if you had a real master in the system, if you had a chance to meet them and all the rest of it. So, and it's wrong to think about somebody in those terms, right? I might be better than a lot of people to you all. Like you see me and you're like, oh, and what I'm doing here and, whatever. But I'm not at that level. Doesn't mean I'm at that level. Same thing I was talking about this Christian woman, right? Doesn't mean I'm at that level. It means that maybe I'm better than other people to some extent because of my, spiritual blessings and maybe stuff I've done in the past life. Not everybody, but some people. And at least on a spiritual level, you think, oh, you see some evolution and you think, wow, that guy's reached it. I'm not even nearly, I don't know where I am in the spiritual path, but there's a lot more to go, if there's rungs of a ladder, I might be on the first rung. Like, maybe the first rung, I don't know. Like, I don't know where I am, but I know it isn't more than that. And so I'm a lot closer to everybody else than I am to these masters and the higher developed souls and the ultimate goal, right? And I've said this before, and this is something about Jesus as well, that, Jesus didn't have all that much spiritual evolution, but to the people of the time and the people that he was with, he seemed to be a god, right? It'd be like if you never played basketball before and you saw a bunch of really good high school players play and you're like, oh my God, there can't be anybody better than them. And then you saw good college players play and then you're like, well, it can't be anybody better than them. And then you saw, lower level professionals play and you're like, wow, there can't be anybody better than them. And then you saw the best players play and you're like, wow. And then there's always somebody that could reach a higher level than that, right? So it's something like that, right, where you're, where you're thinking that something that appears to be higher or is higher is the highest, and it's not. It just happens to be higher than you are, right? And so that's, the distinction has to be made. People have to be aware of that, whether it be a religion or a spiritual organization. There's always higher levels to go, and all the people who are there, the divine beings, the masters, they're still evolving. Like, nobody stops. You're always moving forward on your spiritual journey. But anyways, that's it for now. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.